So Imperial Guard commanders, after the new points rebalancing, which is stronger, the tank commander or the regular Leman Russ? Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're taking a focused look at the Leman Russes and talking about which is best. Throughout 9th edition so far, the tank commander has just been far outperforming the standard Leman Russ, but of course a couple of months ago Games Workshop shook up the points a bit. Leman Russes dropped by 5 points and tank commanders increased by 5. It's certainly done a little bit to even the playing field. As they're essentially the same unit, albeit with a few different special rules, let's talk about the pros and cons of each. So to put it fairly simply, the Leman Russ will give you extra durability and the tank commander will give you extra damage. Say if you equip a standard Leman Russ with a demolisher cannon, that will cost you 160 points, and a tank commander will cost you 195 points. Those will be the numbers that we're using to compare them, as I think that demolisher cannons are by far the most competitive choice at the moment. The durability boost for the standard Leman Russ is really easy to calculate. They both have the exact same defensive profile, 12 wounds. The regular Russ costs 160 and the tank commander costs 195, and that makes the regular Russ 22% more durable than the tank commander. You're getting the same defensive profile for cheaper. Damage output is perhaps a little bit less intuitive. Of course, tank commanders hit on a 3+, but they also have the option to do a tank order each turn, so they should always be hitting on 3+ re-rolling 1s. I'm going to label that as the default option, as a flat buff to your damage is usually really helpful. I'm not saying that the other orders can't be very good, but you would only ever use them if they were better than having the damage buff, otherwise you'd just not bother. In any case, when you hit on 3s re-rolling 1s, you'll hit just about 5.4 times with a standard battle cannon, compared with a regular Leman Russ will only hit 3.5 times. It means that per model tank commanders are over 50% more lethal than standard Leman Russes, but obviously regular Russes cost a bit cheaper, and when you wait for points the damage output difference is a bit less, tank commanders are only 27% better. In general, that is the decision that you have to make between, do you want to invest your points in units that are significantly more killy by 27%, but significantly less durable by 22%? On the face of it, I think that Games Workshop have done at least fairly well with the points change. At least on paper they do seem fairly balanced against each other. Just raw percentage wise, obviously the tank commander wins out by a very tiny bit. 27% is better than 22, but to be honest that's only a really small difference. In a straight firefight against each other, they will be quite similar. In general, for deciding between the two, I think you really have to bear in mind other factors now. Firstly, and perhaps the biggest factor, are tank ace traits. If you're not choosing to use them on a full payload manticore, which might be seen as the default option, then tank ace traits are far more efficient on tank commanders than they are on standard Russes. They're really nice for just piling on extra durability to an incredibly lethal platform, making them an all-around good unit. It's the advantage of putting a buff on a 195 point unit rather than the same buff on a smaller 160 point unit. I do quite like tank commanders myself with a demolisher cannon and the -1 to damage trait. They're going to take a bit more chewing through than the standard tank. If you're already raining down those damage 3 missiles with 4 payload manticores though, and tank aces aren't a factor, there are a few different things that might influence you one over the other. I would argue that the regular Russ is maybe a little bit better in Cadian armies. It sort of makes the reroll 1's order redundant, and being only ballistic skill 4+, they will get a little bit more out of overlapping fields of fire. It is a bit of a trade-off as tank commanders get that reroll number of shots order from Cadian, but I'd say that the standard Russes win out slightly on balance. Otherwise, regular Russes are a bit easier to spam as they're heavy support choices that can be squadroned. You can get Obsec if you put them in a spearhead, though honestly it's not always the best idea to be charging them forward. I'd much prefer to leave Obsecking to infantry to be honest, who you don't really care if they die too much or get locked up. I would say that lacking the character tag is an advantage for the standard Russ. Quite a lot of special rules gain bonuses against enemy characters, and you can even get victory points for assassinating. Having less characters on the field is generally a good thing. And finally, if you are looking to field something like a Fireball Russ with a bunch of heavy flamers, it makes a lot more sense to do it on a standard Leman Russ, as of course you don't care about the ballistic skill with them. On the other hand, tank commanders also have their own merits. If you do decide to pile even more damage dealing onto them, then you get more bang for the buck with sponsons and pintle weapons. You pay the same points for them on either tank that you will be hitting on 3s re-rolling 1s on tank commanders, so you'll just get a lot more damage out of them there. It does kind of lead to an all eggs in one basket approach though, where if the tank commander goes down you lose a massive investment, but it means they are utterly thoroughly lethal until they do get shot. Otherwise they are punished a bit less by modifiers to hit, Going from ballistic skill 3+ to 4+ is far less painful than 4+ to 5. You do have the option of the other tank commanders, such as Strike and Shroud, which can certainly be the best option in some cases, and having a bunch of extra movement late game to power your tank across the board could be the difference between getting on an objective or not. They have slightly better synergy with other stratagems and buffs, say the one for 2 CP that allows them to fire their Demolisher Cannon with max shots at enemy armor. That's going to be far better if those max shots are coming out of a really accurate platform, rather than a tank that's only hitting on 4s. By a similar vein, they can be better for things like Night Shroud or Psychic Barrier to make one tank commander extra resilient. Finally, having reroll 1s to hit innately can be good for some of the tank variants, in particular the Leman Russ Executioner and anything with Plasma Cannon sponsons. If you're rerolling 1s to hit, you won't be taking anywhere near as many mortal wounds from your own overcharged plasma. Overall, between the two, it's my opinion that tank commanders still have the edge slightly over standard Russes, though if you did want to take regular Russes in a guard detachment, it's now closer than ever, and you're really not hurting yourself by anywhere near as much as you would have been before. For me, being a bit more resilient to modifiers, having access to some other flexible tank orders, and being able to make more efficient use of buffs are things that sway it in my favour for the tank commander over the regular Leman Russ. I will be really interested to hear your thoughts and opinions though. How do you guard commanders out there feel that they're stacking up against each other? Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I do try to keep guard videos coming fairly regularly on the channel, so either subscribe or check back later if you'd like to see more. Finally, if you have been watching a lot of my videos lately, I would just like to mention that the channel has a Patreon page which you can find down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, such as seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next for the channel, and automatic entry to the channel's monthly prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.